Hello, and welcome to another Lafayette Parish Master Gardeners Get It Growing program. My name is Peggy Voorhies, and Genee Foley is joining us today as our usual commentator, wonderful, knowledgeable person, and we're here to talk about cool color for fall. Several different types of plants and edibles too.
We have such an array and a colorful array of plantings that we can choose from in the fall. It's almost mind-boggling. You almost have too many choices. But before we get into the specifics, we want to remind you that we are having an extremely dry autumn season. So especially before we get cool weather, be sure and get your 1 inch of water on those plants. Your plants are much more susceptible to freeze damage if they're water stressed. So when they're announcing those cold fronts, usually they're preceded by some wet weather. But if they're not, get some water on those plants.
Absolutely.
You may have noticed too in your yard, I'm noticing in mine, that many of your plants are developing large yellow leaves. This is a natural and a normal process. Your plants are not dying because of water stress. They're just beginning to go dormant because it's that time of year.
Absolutely, and especially people will notice this in evergreen plants such as azaleas and get confused and concerned that they are losing their azaleas. Actually, it's a normal process for them to lose their older leaves this way.
And especially keep an eye, we talked about, water stress. Keep an eye if you planted some strawberries and get, adequate water. You want those gorgeous berries in the spring. That means get some water on those plants now. And don't forget to get the last of your bulbs planted. If you have, a little trouble making your selections, access the LSU Ag Center website for the varieties that do better in Southwest Louisiana.
Absolutely.
And we also want to invite you to our garden talk Saturday, November the 19th at 10 o'clock. It's at the usual location, the R. Nelson Horticulture Center in our demo garden. And one of our master gardeners, Janelle Menard, will be talking about quick fixes to protect your plants from winter damage. Little small mini greenhouses that you can make with, PVC and plastic. Just getting ready. Winter is coming. Yes, it's going to be 80 degrees next week, but we are going to be having some cold
But
weather.
it is our cold Louisiana weather that will eventually get here. We're getting into November and December. So let's talk about wonderful colors that we can plant at this time of year. And we really do want to emphasize that this is the perfect time to plant all of our cool season annuals. So I'm going to start with the annuals here right in the front of the table. This is Sweet Alyssum. It is a fabulous smelling, sweet annual that can be used for edging of borders. It likes it dry, so it's actually going to be pretty good for this time of year for us. Make sure you have really good drainage. Works great in containers and also on the edges of your beds in the front. It's not a high grower, lovely scent. Plant it by a door in a container. When your neighbors come to visit, they'll just be astounded at the smell. We also have lovely dianthus here. This is called also by its common name of pinks because of the pinking sheer edges on the plant. This is an old-fashioned, cool weather, super hardy annual. You will love this. Also likes it relatively dry, full sun, part shade, and does sometimes have a scent to it, and will carry on all the way through June. So you're gonna get this kind of color through June. With a little bit of deadheading, you'll get lots more flower production.
And this is the annual variety. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about the perennial variety, even though we don't have an example here.
Yes, and that is a super plant. We'll discuss it in a bit. Next, we have our pansies, and of course, most of us are familiar with the pansy, beautiful big-faced flower. Also a great cold weather producing plant for us. And the recommended varieties on this are Crystal Bowl and Majesty. This is one of the Majesty mixed plants.
And get a lot of fertilizer on your pansies.
Yes.
They are high need plant.
And while we're discussing fertilizer, it is really probably best on these cool season annuals to use a slow release coated fertilizer when you're planting. You don't want to give them too much fertilizer for green leaves. We want to kind of stress them a little bit, make that fertilizer run real slow to give us more flower color. In the case of pansies, come back and use a soluble water fertilizer every 2 weeks that's specifically designed for bloom.
And deadhead too.
Deadhead.
That deadhead makes, those new buds come into production. So, pay the kids to go pluck the dead ones off.
And related to the pansy, and my favorite, and I know Genee's also, is the Johnny Jump Up or viola. This is a smaller cousin of the pansy. You don't have to do the deadheading, not a voracious eater. And I'm telling you what, this will give you color, color, color through May. It's just awesome. I love these, and great in containers too.
And this actually, we're going to cheat and tell you, is going to be a super plant next year.
Oh, great idea.
It is. It's in the.
And it should be.
It should be.
Yes. It's a sorbet series, SORBET. And all of these recommended varieties can be found on our LSU Ag site. Now we can go to snaps, another favorite here. With snaps, we plant them at this time of year. You're not going to see quite as many flowers out of your snaps right now. You may get a little discouraged, but if you put them in right now, I promise you, in the spring, your neighbor's eyes will pop because you will have fabulous color. Their root systems will be well developed, and they will just give you great cut flowers, just wonderful, wonderful annual plant.
And check the heights on your snaps. There are many different varieties now. This is a little mid-size one. There's a wonderful dwarf, and of course there are your big tall standards. So be sure and read the label and select according to which portion of your bed that you're putting them in.
Exactly.
Or your container.
For instance, the tall ones are called rockets. Kind of an easy way to remember, and those make great cut flowers. May need to be staked, but are wonderful. And then you have Liberty, which is here, which is a mid-growth plant, and then the floral carpet, which is our mounding. Lastly, in the annuals category are petunias. A lot of us think that petunias are just spring annuals, but actually they can take it down to 20 degrees. They may be a little bit frostbit, but they'll come bouncing right back, and they will just give you color, color, color through into May, sometimes
June.
into June. Yes.
And again, when you put the petunias out now, what you're doing is developing a root system so that come our first warm weather, whether that be February or early March, they will respond much more quickly and much more wonderfully than the petunias you have just planted.
Absolutely. In all cases of annuals, we really emphasize that you build your beds up because drainage is a very important component of annuals. We don't want our annuals sitting in soggy, wet soil. You'll end up with funguses, diseases, and it also encourages snails and slugs that'll come and chew on them. Make sure you get those beds really raised with coarse sand, add a little peat, get them up and running.
And put a little mulch on them too.
And slow release fertilizer.
There you go.
Okay.
And you should. Now I bought one other annual, and this is something to just play with. I have not seen this plant in real life. It's in the seed catalog, so another thing, just like the 2012 sorbet coming, this is a new little red mustard called Red Streak Mizuna. And if you look at any of the seed catalogs, it's there. It's going to color up too, so be looking at it. Not this year probably, but next year in the nurseries. Gets about 12 or 16 inches, just used for color, and it's going to complement a lot of these other
flowers.
Other flowers.
And Genee, I did not bring the ornamental kale because I think everybody is so familiar with that, but since we're talking about these lovely textured plants that add to our flowers, we can perhaps mention our beautiful red bar super plant.
Okay, that one now is really sort of funny. It is theoretically unedible. If you touch this plant, it is coarse, it is stringy. It's going to get 30 inches. So I mean, I would maybe remove a few leaves for a garnish, but I would not be trying to cook this plant. This is, in my opinion, though it is edible, it's an ornamental. If you want an edible kale, then grow the red Russian. We don't happen to have any today. It's a gorgeous blue-green kale with a leaf about 2 or 3 inches with some reddish tint to it. I mean, it's gorgeous, but it's also a true edible. The red boar, however, is a Louisiana super plant. And you've heard us talk about these plants before. It's a designation of the LSU Ag Center, which means a plant has been industry tested and professionally recommended for growth throughout the state of Louisiana. There are usually 3 or 4 introduced every season. Red Boar, which was actually an introduction from last year, but we just wanted to let you see it again. And Peggy, the Camelot Foxglove, was also
Right
a
here.
super plant from last year.
And this is the tag that you'll look for in the nurseries to designate the super plants. And this is our foxglove, and this is this beautiful kale. It's just awesome.
And the Camelot Foxglove comes in the rose, this is the lavender, and there's a cream. And the rose and the lavender do better than the cream. That happens in a lot of series. For some reason, there are just colors that are superior, and the rose and the lavender in the foxglove series are just superior to the cream.
Now, I know we have a couple of other super plants on our table here, and they're on this side.
We really do. This, the rose, is Belinda's Dream. Now, that is the 2011 fall super plant. An absolutely superb landscape rose. If you can see, in contrast to the knockouts and many of the other landscape roses, which have a lower petal count, Belinda's Dream has a 45 petal count, which means it's a full rose. It tends to have, when it's in bud and opening that high center of a hybrid tea, it also has a longer stem than many of the landscape roses. It is going to flush for you time after time from April through December. You can actually plant these roses now. They're not hybrid teas. You know, it's a great time to plant them for the same reason. They're going to be developing that root system to pop in the spring. You're going to care for them because it's a super plant. Actually, even because it was the first Texas earth kind rose. This is an extremely durable plant. You are going to need to fertilize it lightly. Its fertilization requirements are low. Its irrigation requirements are low. If you're familiar with the earth kind process, after 2 years, nothing is done with those plants. These are no spray roses. It was trialed at the LSU Ag Center in Baton Rouge, and they only had 10 to 20% black spot in the fall with a no spray program. So these are just superb roses. Now, left unpruned, it's going to get about 5 feet tall. You really should keep it contained are pruned back a little bit more in the 4-foot range.
I would assume that you can prune them as you take the flowers for cuts.
But you're actually also pruning it in the spring, you know, removing a half to a third because they're vigorous plants. Yeah,
this is the knockout variety.
This is right. And then again in August, you're going to prune it more lightly, a third to a fourth. But that gives you, you know, many people are hesitant to prune these plants back. These are vigorous plants. You're going to, you know, as you say, be pruning it as you remove the blooms. But you do need
to prune them back to keep their sizes a little bit more manageable.
And to keep them compact and full too. You know, pruning accomplishes several things. So this is a plant that really needs to be
This also has scent, where some of the other landscape roses do not.
And they readily admit that its scent is sort of fickle though. There are some times of years, there are some times of days that it's a little bit more pronounced. So it's not a scent in the sense of that some of the wonderful antique roses, you know, really.
Even though it has the look.
Not knock your socks off from 6 feet away, but it does have some scent. The second Louisiana super plant we have is the Southern Sugar Maple. Now, it does color up in fall, but do not expect, you can see that it's sort of, you know, starting to get a little orange and yellow. It unfortunately is not going to give us, if you've been in the Northeast in maple season, it's not going to give us that knock your socks off. But it is a fall coloration in our best native plant. This is a native to Southwest Louisiana and to Southern Louisiana and Southern Mississippi. It's an upright plant, grows 30 feet tall as opposed to 20 feet wide. You can see it if you look in a lot of commercial landscapes. You're starting to see
these, yeah.
the southern sugar maples, especially off Congress, which is where I travel up and down. And there's quite a few.
They're moderate in growth rate.
They're moderate growth rate.
And a good, beautiful leaf shape. It's a delicate tree. It's pretty.
It's pretty. And you notice the leaves too are a little lime green as compared to many of our evergreen trees. Now this is a deciduous tree, also a wonderful time of year to be planting this tree, as all of your trees.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, we could not find another Louisiana super plant that we could not find, and they do make every effort when a super plant is announced to get them out. The wholesale nurseries are notified in advance that this plant's going to be named a super plant to try in an effort to get them readily available in the market. But sometimes there's just glitches.
Right. And there is a list of all of the nurseries on our website, our LSU Ag Center website. Depending on which city you live in, it'll tell you where the nurseries are that carry our super plants.
So we do want to mention that the swan columbines are also a super plant for the fall. I was unable to locate any, and of course, you know, sometimes there's just a delay, which is why we're mentioning them, because sometimes 2 weeks from now, they're going to all of a sudden, right, the nurseries will have reached a stage to ship them out, so you just never know. Nurseries are carrying tighter supplies, though, I've noticed. So if you're interested in some of these plants, let your nurseryman know that you would like them.
And he'll call you when they come in.
And he will call you, or even maybe compile an order. So those are our 4 super plants for the fall: the swan columbine, the red boar kale, Melinda's dream rose, and the southern sugar maple.
And those are the 4 that were introduced this year. There were some additionally introduced last year, so keep your eyes open up for the Louisiana super plant tag.
And we also did not find the wonderful, told you we were going to talk about, the Dianthus, the Amazon neon, which comes in a variety of colors, and it was also a super plant last year. I am just fond of this plant. It's 12 to 18 inches long, goes from now until it gets, you know, blazing hot.
And great cut flowers.
Great cut flowers. A variety of colors, so look for that in the nursery also. And we forgot to talk about the red mustard hiding over there in the corner.
Yes. So this is not a Louisiana super plant, however.
It is not.
But it is just beautiful with, once again, using these intermixed with your annual color. You can see how it gives texture, but at the same time provides some color.
And that actually is an edible. If you haven't tasted it, it has a little horseradish zing. I absolutely love it raw. And just picture it. I mean, the red boar kale and the red mustard, the red mustard is going to get to be about 24 by 24. It's just
big.
It's large. But it is just a popper in a garden. And, you know, imagine the color combinations with some yellows. Those purples play off so well with other colors. So you can have a lot of fun with the red mustard. This is another little perennial that we need to discuss. The Echinacea series Pow Wow Wildberry. It is an All-American Selection winter. There are going to be different colors in the series. These are just coming out onto the nurseries now. They are a coneflower, an echinacea, that's going to retain its foliage. They also, curiously, if you plant 6 of these, and we want to mention this because, you know, it might kind of astound you, each individual plant has a little variation in its height. In height, for its own unknown reason. Dr. Alan Owens was telling us this last night. that they had done plantings at the Hammond Research Center. Some of them are 12 inches, some of them are 14 inches, some of them are 10 inches. So you have done nothing wrong. You know, the wholesalers have done nothing wrong. That is just the nature
Of the plant.
of this little plant.
And echinacea is also a plant that requires excellent drainage, but makes beautiful cut flowers.
Now, this one, Dr. Owens was saying, is less susceptible to root rot.
Well, that's great.
It's going to be probably an outstanding landscape plant for Southwest Louisiana, because you do get discouraged when they get the root rot. Now, you might not think of pumpkins as fall color, but we're going to cheat and say, why not? Because if you want to use a pumpkin as decoration on a patio, it's going to last 60 days.
Time,
it's going to last a long time. You know, as long as you don't carve it, it will sit there, you know.
And keep it dry.
And keep it dry and, you know, as cool as you possibly can. It is a wonderful ornamental. And, you know, on the flip side, these are also edibles. And if you haven't cooked a real pumpkin before, if you've always used the canned varieties, all you've got to do is slice them in half, take out all the messy insides, and put them cut side down in an oven or in your microwave, whichever method you choose, until they're fork tender. There's a wonderful sheet on the LSU Ag Center website that also tells you how to roast the seeds with a variety of seasonings.
Which are wonderful, really high nutritional value.
As is the pumpkin meat.
Absolutely.
Is great in A and E. And we also have some pomegranates that are getting ripe at this time of year. Wonderful. These were grown actually by one of the master gardeners in her home yard with seeds from a grocery store. And pomegranate seeds do readily germinate if you want to play. Now, many, many years we do not get pomegranates because we don't get enough chill hours. But with the past 2 winters, she has evidently had enough chill hours on her pomegranate tree because they are producing wonderfully.
And then let's talk about the lovely persimmons.
These
the color is just great.
If you could not eat these, they would be worth growing. Just to see a tree with 100 of these on it is a stunning sight. This is the native, this is the oriental. There are many varieties of the oriental. Usually they have a little bit larger fruit with fewer seeds. But, you know, just like the pumpkins, excellent source of vitamins. Again, on the LSU Ag Center website, I saw a great recipe for persimmon cake. So, you know, use the pulp of the persimmons too, as well as having a wonderful ornamental.
And of course, right now, if you grow kumquats or oranges, lemons, all of that is beautifully coming into color right now. You can, and satsumas, you can pick your satsumas as soon as they start to turn. Leave your oranges on your tree till they are ready to be eaten, because they will just get sweeter and sweeter.
Have you noticed that the satsumas are not coloring this year?
My satsumas are coloring a little bit, but I find them a little slower. But my oranges are just completely, they're just gorgeous.
The first satsumas that I've gotten, the skin is lighter for some reason, and I meant to ask somebody at the meeting and never thought about it, but it's just one of those things. They're perfectly edible, they're soft, the skin is just not getting that
tender,
typical orange that we associate. And we also want you to notice that this is our first program that is being broadcast in the new AOC facility. We are delighted to be here. If you have not gone by the Rosa Parks Transportation Center and seen the wonderful new facilities that are offered to the public as an open channel access, you know, you need to come by here.
It really is a lovely
We
building.
are in gratitude to the staff here who have helped us so much bring cultural information, horticultural information to you, the community. It is a wonderful, beautiful facility, and we are delighted to be here. We will remind you that the Garden Talk is the 3rd Saturday of November on protecting your plants.
Many greenhouses and getting ready for the cold snaps that will be coming down those Canadian fronts that are so hard on our plants when they just come in and hit us with 16 degrees. So that will start happening.
And that is one of the challenges, of growing in Southwest Louisiana. We have cooler weather now. Next week, we're going to have warmer weather. Your plants are much more susceptible to damage than in an environment where they steadily get cooler and cooler and cooler. So we have to be a little bit protective of our plants.
But get out there and plant right now while it's sunny and beautiful, and put your annuals in and enjoy the colors that you will be producing from now until June. It's well worth the effort.
It will. What's going to be your favorite?
My favorite? Johnny Jump Ups. It always is. They're just the best.
I know. Those are my favorites too, but I love the little echinacea. I can't wait to get some of those and trial them and see what happens.
I'll be coming to your yard to check it out.
We'll report on our favorites next
Thanks for
show.
joining us again. Okay.